All right, today we're going to learn how to cut, finish, and install butcher block countertops. Step 1, you're going to measure for the length. You can use a tape measure or a laser measure. Now let's make the cuts. The Diablo 60 teeth fine finish saw blade, I've got that linked below for you. It makes for a great smooth cut. As you can see here, it will work very slowly through the butcher block, but it's worth it as the cut will be so smooth you won't even have to sand it if you don't want. As for a guide for the circular saw, we are using a Drywaller's T-square. We have it clamped down 6 inches from the guide because that's the distance between the blade and the edge of the plate that's attached to the bottom of the circular saw. For joining 2 pieces together in a corner, you have 2 options. You can use a butt joint like this, which is much easier to cut and has less waste, or you can do a miter joint like this. This cut can be a bit trickier, but it's more aesthetically pleasing to most. We chose a miter joint, and for the first side, we're going to go ahead and just cut a regular 45-degree angle. For the other side, put the pieces into place on top of your base cabinets, lay the uncut piece underneath your newly cut piece, and use a pencil to mark the line, and then use a guide and make that cut. After all your cuts are made, sand the wood with 220 grit sandpaper. Do the top, bottom, and all sides. If you plan to apply any finish to the butcher block like stain or polyurethane or even an epoxy glaze, you're going to want to clean it first. Use acetone on a dry rag. Do not use a tack cloth. Even if you're going to apply a finish on top or if you're going to leave the wood natural, you do need to seal the butcher block. You can use a water-based polyurethane. Be sure to get the top, the bottom, and all of the sides. If you're going to only do this and nothing more, make sure you get a food-safe grade polyurethane. In this particular example, I'm not using a food-safe because I'm going to be applying something else on top of it. So after you've let the sealer dry overnight, let's get it installed. Go ahead and dry fit the pieces to make sure everything looks good. We're going to be using a miter bolt kit first to join the seams together. I'll have that linked below for you. Using a plunge router, trim out slots for the miter bolts to sit on the bottom of each piece. The slots should be about 1/2 inch deep. Just take a pencil and trim where you need to cut, and we did 4 miter bolts on this countertop. Be sure and apply some sealer into the grooves that you just cut out so that you can protect the wood from moisture. Next, it's time to install the countertops and join the seam. You're going to apply some wood glue along the entire seam. Then slide the pieces into one another. Now from underneath the countertop, you're going to place the miter bolts into the slots and use a crescent wrench to tighten them. As you can see here, my seam wasn't quite the perfect cut I was hoping for, but I had saved some of the sawdust to plan for this. Take a plastic scraper and you can just get it right down in that groove. Wipe off any excess with a paper towel. And finally on this, you can take some extra sawdust and just work it into the grooves from the top. And when you're all finished, just vacuum it all up. And as you can see here, the seam looks much better. Finally, let's attach the countertop to the base cabinets. Wood will expand and contract with the changes in temperature and humidity. Therefore, these Z tabletop fasteners work great as they are designed to allow the countertop a bit of flexibility to move and adjust as it needs to. We'll need to create a small slot in the base cabinet, so just mark where it needs to be. And then I just used a Dremel to cut out that slot. I took a hole on one end, made a little hole on the other end of the mark I made, and then I just took the Dremel tool and went back and forth until I got it deep enough. All right, once the slot's done, put the fastener in and take a screwdriver to screw it into the underside of the countertop. And just place one of these about every foot or so. And there you have it, your brand new butcher block countertops. Now these are called dark European walnut. I got them from Home Depot. I did not stain them. This is the natural color. I did just put an epoxy glaze on top. I've got all of the products I used linked for you below. Be sure to subscribe if you want more DIY made easy.